live with another edition of Notes. It says very bad connection, sorry. With another edition of Notes on the news feed. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Angela and the channel is Be Fabulous You. Notes on the news feed is not news, but it's where I read to you headlines from the news and discuss other things going on in the world. And I might share with you my thoughts on those headlines, the subject matter at large, the article in particular if I've read it, but it's not news. It's just, we just trying to get a survey and keep up a little bit with what goes on in the world and trying to make some connections. So that's what we got. That's the not news. We're working on 1,000 subscribers. Thank you for clicking on the video or joining us live, liking, commenting, subscribing, and sticking around to see how we get from opening to closing. Let us proceed. Okay, so with the notes on the news feed. The most hated player in Jersey will keep kneeling. I thought it was some professional football player, but apparently I think it's a high school student, I believe. And I think he's a wrestler, and the people are mad because he's kneeling. He like, I'm not going to let the people or some people change my mind. And I say, I think that's good. I think it's good to have your mind and make your decisions, especially when you sound like you have, you know, some sort of integrity, some sort of perspective that's worth having. A woman just slammed John Legend for carrying his own daughter, and Chrissy Teigen is not having it. And I'm like, slammed him for carrying his daughter? Was he carrying her upside down? What was up? And I guess the person is like, you're always carrying your child. You never have your child on the floor. Hi, welcome in. And or you know, you never let her walk or whatever. And I feel like even if somebody posts up 20 pictures a day, 200 pictures a day, how long does it take? I mean, you don't know what's going on in them people's houses. What are you talking about? What? Thank you for the like. What? Just be quiet. Just be quiet. Illinois Attorney General candidate says GOP opponent used N-word and asked if she was a lesbo. Michael Steele, now that was the person who was like the chair of the Republican National Committee, maybe the RNC, I don't know. But I think that he was chair. Good afternoon, Rowdy Chica 59. I think that he was chair during the Obama era, Obama administration, sort of like, you know, even though we've heard conversation over the years of the Republican Party saying we have to be more diverse. Look, I'm shaking my head because we've never really seen, you know, much evidence. Now, I didn't follow politics enough to know that he had even been in office. The only time I started or been the chair, the only time I started knowing anything is you see him as a commentator on like I see him as a commentator. You may not, because you may not watch AM Joy or whatever. So I guess yesterday they said something about to basically saying he was like a token black, but there were other black people who were running and got elected. And I think, you know, the impression that I get from him is that, you know, he seems relatively sane. I mean, and maybe he thought that he could have an impact or make a difference. He says that he does know that the Republican Party has a race issue, but he doesn't seem like vapid. Like he seems like he's got some heft, some weight, some substance. I mean, which is like, I don't even know how I can like form my mouth to say that about someone who, but you know, I'm just being honest. Like that's, I don't know what, I feel like it's something wrong with him because he's a Republican, but maybe not. Maybe he, you know, I don't know. But, you know, I guess he's been in the news because somebody said he was a token or something to that effect. And then here he is. Michael Steele gets another wake-up call when his friend tries to white-splain the token black comment. Now, he does seem to be pretty sharp to me. I don't think he needed anybody to explain the comment, but I'm sure that the white-splainer did a good job of explaining it to him. We went to H&M's sister store. Now, I don't shop at H&M. I didn't know. He seems racist to me. Michael Steele, the black guy who ran the RNC, he probably is. We can be racist too. I don't, you know, yeah, that's a whole nother story. We went to H&M sister store and saw why it's become a secret weapon for the struggling company. And I'm like, boo, boo. She said yes. I forget what the name of the store is, so I'm not going to advertise it. But that's just like The Gap, J. Crew, and Old Navy are all one store. They're owned by the same company. So, you know, here you are thinking, well, forget H&M. They're putting baby Liam out there. You know, his mother's not going to protect him. And they putting him out there talking about he the coolest monkey in the jungle. And I'm not going to any H&M stores anymore. Forget H&M. And then you go into their sister store supporting the same company. And you don't even know they connected. And that's kind of how I feel like about these, like about food and about food companies. Like at some point it was like, I mean, I'm not in a place now where I can just be like, I'm gonna go get my eggs from these people who, you know, and I'm gonna get my honey from this man who, you know, just like where you can like know the people and like vibe them. Cause these corporations, it seems like it's always subterfuge and mess and confusion and lies, the lies, the lies, the lies. Like it seemed like yeah. So anyway, you know, they got another, I guess, but this is coming off of Google. So you could look it up to find the name if you're like a big shopper, or you could probably Google it. Mexico's ascendant Jalisco cartel may be copying the brutal tactics of the once dominant Zetas. I don't know much about Mexican gangs. I don't even know why that kind of caught my attention, but it did. Akon, isn't he like the musical person, says his plan to restore power to Puerto Rico was rejected, and he knows exactly why. And I clicked because I wanted to know just why. I didn't, you know, and I couldn't find out why. So if you find out why, let me know, or why he thinks it was. But when they, you know, they said that when I did click, it said that Akon has made a reputation, has a budding reputation as having supplied a lot of power and energy to people in Africa who were without power and energy. And I think I remember seeing an article about him, you know, and I was kind of like, okay, that seems progressive, you know. Texas teen to be sentenced after lying about being gang raped by black men. So she said 3 black men got her when she showed up, when she presented herself to the you know, she showed up in like a church parking lot with her, you know, just her panties on and her shirt ripped up and blood on her and, you know, bruises or whatever. I can't remember. And then when the people were like, oh my gosh, what happened? She said, well, 3 black men, you know, I think she said they came into her house and they raped her and she was out in the woods and they were just repeatedly raping her. But, you know, when they started investigating, they couldn't find like evidence that she had been like out in the elements. Like if you had been like a few days like out because it was cold there, like it would have been some evidence. They couldn't find evidence that she was raped, and she admitted that that's not what happened. But you know what it reminded me of? I don't know if you're old enough or familiar. There's this woman, a young woman named Tawana Brawley. Now I couldn't remember her name, but that's when I first heard of Al Sharpton. And this young black woman presented her. She showed up in a garbage. She was missing. She showed up in a garbage bag with feces and KKK and NIGGER, whatever. Like she was like, her body was like vandalized and she was in a garbage bag and it was like boo-boo. And it was kind of like, oh my God. And she said that 3 white guys had gotten her. And then I guess it was later proven that, you know, that was not true. Now, with this story, I guess I'm like, oh yeah, she's lying. But with Tawana Brawley, I never believed she was lying. Is that like, I didn't believe, I didn't know what had happened and why, but I didn't believe, I don't know. But the same thing. They said they couldn't find evidence of rape. They said, you know, her story, you know, the story didn't add up. But I guess I feel like the system is designed for the most part to protect white women, and the system is designed against black women. You know, so I just kind of feel like I don't evaluate the way the system, like if this white woman said that she was raped by 3 black men and the system said that she was not, I believe the system, because everything in the system wants to be like, yes, she was raped by 3 black men. Whereas this black woman, and she was born she's like my age, 72, when I looked it up this morning, because I couldn't remember her name. And it was like, I knew Al Sharpton had something to do with it. And so anyway, but the system, when she says that she was raped, when a black woman says she was raped by 3 white men or by white men or whatever, the system is trying to tear her down. It's not trying to support her. It's not trying to believe it. So I don't know. Maybe this is just like a sign of like, you know, my like mental illness, or like, you know, I feel like I have to see the evidence. I just don't believe it. Let me see the evidence. Maybe then if I could evaluate it, I believe it. Or, you know, if I looked in her eyes, but I don't know. Yeah. So that's what happened. She's sentenced. I don't know what she was sentenced to, but I know, yeah, I don't know, yeah, how many, black love, yappo yappo, how many black men got picked up and arrested and harassed, beat, murdered, killed on the strength of her word that 3 black guys had raped her. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe none. I don't know. I'm just wondering, because we know that, it's a common strategy, or a common, it's a common occurrence, or I get the impression that it's a common occurrence. Africatown, a small historically black town fighting a billion-dollar company that's devastating its community with toxic waste. Now, I think that this Africatown is a community in Mobile, Alabama, or near Mobile, Alabama, and I live not too far from there, but I was like in the process of moving before I even realized that Africatown was there. Like, I would go to Mobile, but I didn't know nothing about no Africatown. So, and then one of my friends, he was like traveling across country, and he had made some connections with folks in Africatown. I didn't know anything about them, but this is coming off of Atlanta Black Star. So if you have support to send, words of encouragement, prayer, money, expertise, Africatown, you might want to lend some support. But I think they're down in Mobile, Alabama, or in that vicinity. White identity signs pop up on Vermont campuses to remind other whites of their privilege. So I don't know. I didn't really bother looking at the article. So I don't know if the white people put it up or the black people put it up to be like, see, here's an example of white privilege. See, here's an example. I don't know. Jerusalem, Christianity's holiest site, closed in protest. What's Christianity's holiest site? I thought the image was really interesting because it was a door. It was like some people closing a door, and it was like, we're like almost disproportionate. Like the door looked like it was like 12 feet tall, and the people were like closing the door. It was like 2 or 3 men, and it was just like, and it was a wooden door, and it was carved, and it was just like, ooh, it was a nice image. But I was like, what's the holiest site? But again, I guess I did not care enough to look it up. Does that make me a heathen? Okay, DR Congo protests. Protester killed in Kinshasa demonstration. So peace for the person who made their transition, the family and community of the person who made their transition. So these people were protesting, I think, at a church. And the police wanted to disperse the people who were protesting. Like, go on, move along. We ain't having no protest here. And they use guns, like bullets, as a tool to disperse the people. It seems like guns and bullets are like a tool for murderation, not for dispersion. But, I mean, that's just me, right? Like, yeah, yeah. Ridiculous. 2 execs created a museum exhibition with random objects people saved from former loves, from a stolen toaster to a wedding dress in a jar. So do you have, you're right. So do you have like keepsakes from your like former loves, relationships, like things? Is it like weird? Is like, oh, I have a box with love letters that we wrote, or this is the flower that he gave me and it's been pressed, or I mean, I think do I have, I've moved so many times, and then my stuff has been in a fire, and then you move in, and then you never unpack the stuff from the first house and to the next house, and it just seems like my material things are all over the place. And so I think in my head it's like they're just gone. I don't really even count them. I should like go and destroy them or give them away or whatever. But I can't even think of anything I have material from my first marriage. But I have a lot of emotional growth and development, so that's important. I just have photos. I don't even have photos. I have. And then that's the husband that's the ex-husband I told you, my mother be like, well, hey, do you know how they doing? Because we would go like and spend time with them. She spent time with them when the divorce was happening. She's like, well, y'all are getting a divorce, but I'm not getting a divorce. And little did she know she was getting a divorce too. So she traumatized. I don't know if I'm traumatized because I kind of saw it coming, but I'm like low grade traumatized. But anyway, and children. Photos and children with children are the best memento ever. So I thought that museum would be interesting to see, you know, what things people have kept and the significance of them. Boy 12 dies after falling from cliff in French ski resort in Avoriaz. So peace to the child and his family and his community and everything. And I think his brother was with him. So that's like a... And they were like coming off the roof or something. I don't know. I didn't. But yeah. Independent filmmakers are irate after Amazon slashed royalties by 60% on its self-distribution platform. And that was kind of, it wasn't amazing to me exactly because, you know, like on YouTube, they change rules all the time. And I was thinking that people who publish their books like through Amazon, you know, Amazon has a self-publishing, like what if they like just closed your rates off, you know, or changed it, you know, like 60%, they cut the rates by 60%. Like that sounds significant to me. That's like a big deal. It says very bad consulting. So irate and they're upset. It's very bad. For November, that's quite a bit. Yeah, 60% is quite a bit. It says very. I'm like freezing and doing all of that weird stuff, or if it's just like shut off, or what does a bad connection look like? I'm just. This is real life. It doesn't say bad connection anymore. So Michelle is gonna, Mrs. Obama is gonna have a memoir coming out in November. I did read Barack Obama's memoir like last year, the year before for book club. The Audacity of Hope, I think it was called. I just had never had any interest in I was breakdancing for a moment. I had never had any interest in reading it, but after I read it, I was like, oh, you know, I thought more highly of him. Once again, Wisconsin high school is accused of racist chants during a game. So apparently a month ago they were accused of racist chants during a game, and now a month later they're accused of the same thing. You think they haven't addressed the issue maybe? You think it's a systemic thing? You think it's something to do with the culture? Wisconsin, the Midwest, baby, I tell you. But the whole country, the whole world. I mean, there's some people in this world who are, you know, Syria war, airstrikes resume hours after UN approves ceasefire. So we were talking yesterday, like, why does the UN have to approve a ceasefire? If they say they want to cease the fire, what does the UN have to do with it? And I don't know. Maybe the UN, I don't know what was going on. But anyway, the airstrikes resume. So it seems like the fire has not ceased. China proposes to let Xi Jinping extend presidency beyond 2023. So 2023 seems like a long time off. Now, I don't know if they specifically said I think that they said, well, maybe we should be able to have 3-term president or a longer term president. I don't know if they specifically said, well, we want Angela to be president for longer or whatever his name is, Xi Jinping. But that's what the people feel like it's about, but I'm like, they planning in advance because what is this, 2018? I guess that's only 5 years out. That's not that long. Yeah, that's not that long. For a second, it seemed like forever. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, it's only 5 years. They got a 5-year plan that they're implementing. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, that's my notes. Lucille Bluford, well-respected editor and publisher of the Kansas City Call. So I think that's an ancestor. NCAA responds to report that some college basketball players were getting paid. Barefoot Doctor, we did have shoes. Now, this is something in China where they gave people medical training and sent them out to the countryside to tend to people who were without, medical care. In a lot of places in the world, they should get paid. Yeah, they should. We talked about that yesterday. They should get paid. Because those corporations, those universities, colleges, NCAA is making a lot of money off of those children, and then they're gonna have their knees injured and be sore and have arthritis at 18 or whatever. They're gonna be dealing with, and they ain't been compensated with no. Who's making money off of the children? Everybody's making money off of the children. I was gone. Did y'all notice that I was gone? I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi. So the barefoot doctors, you know, they went out to provide medical service to people throughout the country who didn't have access to medical service. But they were not like doctors. They were just like people who had had some medical training. But it reminded me in Cuba when the Cuban Revolution happened. I can't remember now the statistic, but literacy in the country was like, let's just say 40% or 60% or 20% or 5%. For the most part, people were not literate. And so they had students volunteer to go work in the countryside. And they would work with the farmers during the day, and then they would teach them reading during the evening. And now, I think Cuba's literacy rate is like 98 or 99%, which is basically like 100% literacy. And I just thought that was like really, really amazing. And also, when all of this stuff happened with with America getting more engaged with people, I remember running across some Cubans talking about, we ain't worried about America. We know how to read and analyze and think. And I was kind of like, wow. I mean, you know, in our country, I think that people are literate, but not like our ability to like analyze and think critically is impaired and hampered and compromised. It's not good. Like, I think, you know, we are really vulnerable to some BS. Like, people could say anything to you. Like, they say something in a commercial and you're like, well, it's true. And it's like, you never even ask, like, well, why are they saying that in a commercial? Because they're trying to sell. Like, who's the message? Like, so anyway, I was happy to hear that about Cuba. So I was wondering, you know, the barefoot doctors kind of reminded me of that. Smile, postcards from Afghanistan's furthest corner. Oh, it was a really interesting photo essay. Extremely dumbed down society. Yeah, we are. Yeah. A white wedding during Ethiopia's Red Terror. The this photo thing coming off of the BBC.co was images of people from Afghanistan. It was I like photos, but it was like really interesting, like different ages, different occupations, and it was like a little essay. Like they had like one sentence about each person or whatever. Like, this is an 11-year-old whose father runs B&B, not a B&B, but something where people come and stay, and they seem to be the people who make the most money. Okay, a white wedding during Ethiopia's Red Terror. And I'm not familiar with Ethiopia's Red Terror, but Ethiopia is like my new, you know, passion. So, I mean, you know, I don't have like, it's not like a burning hot passion, like where I'm like, I'm reading everything I can about Ethiopia, but it's like, I got my eyes open. I'm listening. My ears are open to Ethiopia. So Red Terror sounds like some sort of like, it sounds, I guess it was like terrible or something, you know, bad that happened. I don't know. But, you know, I'm interested in Ethiopia. Monique ruthlessly compares Charlemagne the God to traitor slave from Birth of a Nation. And I saw that footage at Birth of a Nation, whether you saw it or not. She said, you know, Charlemagne, you're the brother who took his wife to the white men to be raped, and then waited and brought her home after she was raped by the white men. And I was kind of like, wow, that's like kind of an intense thing to say. And I also kind of feel like, I just feel like when we're caught up in these systems, it's kind of hard for me, and maybe that, like, I just don't have like that personality, but it's kind of hard for me to judge somebody. Like, I feel like you don't have freedom, like you don't own yourself, and so how can you own your decisions? You know, and it's like, I feel like people are doing the best that they can to survive. And I mean, like the brother said in Black Panther, you know, throw me in the ocean with my ancestors who, you know, jumped off and knew that it was better to be at the bottom of the ocean than, you know, enslaved. But then, you know, in Daughters of the Dust, you know, that line when the woman said, you know, we are the children of those who chose to survive. That line has been with me. That movie is what, 25 years old, 20 years. That line has been with, I'm like, wow, that's deep. We're not the, you know, so that's a certain type of orientation that we have. It's like a pragmatism. We're not like, forget it, you know, for the most part, forget it. If I can't be free, I'm just going to end it now. There's like more calculation and like a different, we're the children for the most part of those who chose to survive. And so when you're choosing to survive and stay alive to have children to live another day, you know, and I'm not saying you be like that all day, every day, because sometimes, you know, some moments you just be like, F it, and you just stab, you know, somebody or burn the stuff down or run or be like, you can kill, you know, I'm not saying you the same way all day, every day, but You know, in general, you know, yeah, like the Maroon Society has a whole different orientation. I think, you know, I just think it's interesting because also, like, you know, that story of the little girl who's cooking a roast with her mom, or her mom is teaching her to cook a roast, and the mom takes the roast. I don't even know really exactly what a roast is, but she takes the roast and she cuts off this end, she cuts off that end, and she puts it in the pot. And the little girl is like, well, Mama, why did you cut off the ends? And the mother is like, well, that's how my mother taught me how to do it. And the little girl is like, oh, okay. And then one day, little girl see the grandmother, and she like, well, why do you cut off the ends of the roast? And the grandmother is like, I don't cut off the ends of the roast. I used to when I had a pot that was so small that I couldn't fit a whole roast in it. But now I got a pot big enough to fit a roast in it. That's how I just put the whole roast in, or whatever. But, you know, it's sort of like we pass down things, you know, and we don't even know why we pass down things. We're not conscious of why we pass down things, or what we're passing down, and what's being picked up without being examined. So, you know, so I just kind of like was like, that is why I fight for reparations. It's an insult to me, to the ancestors not to. They bled and died building this country. Payment is due and required. And I think of reparations now. That was supposed to be the theme at the museum this year. I haven't really seen it. But I think of reparations as like repairing. And that's something where I kind of just get lost. Like, I feel like, because money, you can't pay me. How much money are you going to pay me for the torture, the labor, the rape, the cultural stripping, the humiliation, the trauma, the mess, confusion, the BS? How much you going to pay me for that? How much you going to pay me? I don't, you know, I don't, what's the number? You know, it's like if somebody's finger gets cut off at the factory, and they be like, you know, they have like charts and stuff, you know, where a finger is worth this and an arm is worth that. I know what you mean. It will come in many forms, not just money. But, you know, I just feel like, yeah, it can't, I mean, I think money is good. I'm not opposed to money, but, and I just feel like when somebody apologizes and they don't even, like, it's like the whole society, like the reparation is to destroy the society and build something that is humane. Because the whole society is jacked up and dehumanizing and awful in lots of ways, subtle ways that we're not even conscious of, you know? I'm almost finished. But I thought, you know, this whole Monique thing, I think is really interesting. I was listening to Zaza today. She had a thing on it. You know, I just think the whole thing is really interesting because I think that the message is different from the messenger. And, you know, I just feel like I don't even know why there's like any question about the issue that she's raising. But it seems that there is a question because of who she is and how she's moved in the world for some people. No more white guys. Oh, no more white girls. Taye Diggs expresses uncertainty over dating outside his race after backlash from Black community. And I saw something maybe on YouTube today that had 2 Black men on there who said that they were afraid to date outside of their, to date. And I kind of feel like, go on and date whoever you want to date. If you are attracted to, and don't be dating, don't be, you know, don't be bringing that energy over by me. If you're not into me, don't even stay on over there with the people that you love and adore. Don't be bringing your old confused mess over near me. You ain't doing me no favors, and I don't feel like you're doing the community any favors. Although I do think it's I do think that, you know, there maybe through shame or whatever, people can begin to process stuff differently. But yeah. Okay. Everybody's like, right, okay, I agree. Because I feel like it's a whole, maybe Chrissy will do a video on it because she does the whole colorism thing or whatever. But teens are watching a surprising amount of hardcore porn, and parents need to start talking to them about it. I had read an article, this is like 5 or 10 years ago, and it was talking about how many young people are having, I'm not down with interracial dating though, but I don't try to tell grown folks what to do, right? And, I mean, if you've been programmed in a certain way and you haven't undone the programming, I mean, you can, like, take the action, but, yeah, I know what you were saying. You can take the action, but your heart is not in it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know if your heart, but I know I don't want your behind nowhere near me with your, you know, We were talking about, hey, Miss Bella. We were talking about, I stick with my own. Yeah, I like people who like me. I mean, that's the first criteria. If they don't like me, we don't have we don't have any point of connection. But anyway, I was reading this article years and years ago saying that a lot of times young people are first getting introduced to sex through, porn on the internet. And this was a long time ago. I'm sure it's totally different now. Come on, you want to come up here? Come on. Miss Bella. But like, and just like this idea that, like, in porn, women, like, you're not seeing women who look like real women. Women are not behaving like real women. Like, people I guess this article I read was talking about in particular how boys start to get a really skewed perspective of what to expect from a real person in a sexual relationship from watching this porn and stuff. And I think it's like from that, like, that was like years ago. So it's like, I can just imagine now, like, what, young people are exposed to and how that's forming, how certain things are getting hardwired. Like, I think that, like, if someone is like a child molester, like, I think that's hardwired. Like, I don't think you can untangle that. You know what I mean? If somebody is like wired to, get turned on by, a big butt, I don't think you can necessarily like untangle that. So I don't, people who grow up watching porn and, I'm kind of like sensitive, I'm like, so I don't know how the children, how they're processing it and understanding it and making sense of it. And, how young women are coming into their sense of themselves as women and what's expected of them and what's right and, what's normal and what's not normal. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai accepts NRA award, raising questions from critics. Oh, yeah, we already did that yesterday because we said he's doing what he's been doing. I'm not for young people seeing porn. They should learn about sex the way I did, the old-fashioned way, in the streets, in the streets. Yeah. Well, that's like I was doing the review of Black Lightning, and the child went to her parents, and she said, I'm finished with the news. The child went to her parents, and she said she having sex with her boyfriend in Saturday afternoon, and she'll be home by curfew. And I was just like, oh my, I didn't really know because, I mean, you do want to know what's going on with the children, but I mean, and then they know what they did because she asking them questions, and they know what they did when they were her age, and it's just a lot. But I think if I remember when you want me to go out in the streets for sex, Nigerian government acknowledges 110 girls still missing after Boko Haram attack. I don't know if you saw that story. I saw it, but it wasn't it seemed to be the same story that I had seen already. And also, that's a story that I don't really know, it's sort of like, I don't even know how to process or understand, what's going on. Like, because it's kind of like when we talked about her, it was like when the people came, a lot of people ran away. And it's like, if I live in distance, I'd have run on home. So for a while, they were saying that they didn't know how many were missing and that some people weren't missing and blah, 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 blah. And then people are like, well, that's the same thing that they did that the last time that those girls came up missing. And then the girls come up missing, and then some of them have been married off. And it's very distressing. And then I just like the whole concept of Boko Haram. Is it Boko Haram? I don't even understand. Like, I think it's like, it's just like, it's like so far out of my frame of reference, and it seems so awful. It seems very sad. It seems distressing, confusing. Like I remember there's this movie that I watched years ago about, it was like in the Middle East someplace where women had been, just wearing what I would consider to be normal clothes. And then the government became way more conservative. And so it was like against the law for women to go to school. It was against the law for women to have a job. It was against the law for women to be uncovered. So they were like, covered. A lot of things had changed. And it was called the Beauty School of something. I can't remember. But the women were still getting their hair done. They were still wearing makeup. There was still a desire to express themselves into it was like a bucking of the system. It was like a rebellion, but it was just like I mean, because I work in the beauty industry, and like, you know, it was just like really interesting to me. But the whole idea of, I mean, I guess because of the way that I've grown up, like, it's just very difficult for me to imagine like living in a society where I'm not allowed to drive. I will need to understand the history of what's happening in that region so I can figure out what's going on, because I can't relate to any of it. And then trying to understand the history of a region, we can't even I can't even understand the history of Detroit. I mean, you know, let alone the country. You know, it's like you kind of get the gist of it, but like it's so much, and there are so many perspectives on it. You know, and I do try to, like, that's why I try to pay attention and not just tune it out. Like, well, I don't know nothing about that whole culture. That's just different. So I do try to understand it, because I think, well, maybe at some point I'll start to see like the patterns of humanness, and I'll be able to understand it from that perspective. But like, even like when I was in India, I remember at one point, I remember seeing this thing and I'm like, I think it's a banana, but I wasn't sure if it was a banana, because maybe it was a plantain, which is kind of a banana, but not exactly a banana. You don't eat it raw. It's not sweet. And I was just like confused, and like, and so I like asked the person, I'm like, what is this? And they looked at me like I was crazy, and they were like, this is a banana. And I was kind of like, okay. But it was like there was so much in the culture, there was so much going on that I didn't know. You know, I'm like, is it what I think it is, or is it something different from what I think it is? If you pay attention, you'll get pissed off. Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe if we pay attention, we'll get enlightened. Maybe. I don't know. I don't want to be pissed off. I don't want to be pissed on either. But it's true. It's like as I've gotten more information, it can be very upsetting and disturbing. And it's difficult to you know, it's a challenge to it makes it challenging, you know? Like, it's like, you know, you just want to go to the movie and like laugh and have fun. And I went to the movie and I'm all like, I'm still sitting here thinking about the African-American character and Black Lightning. Like, I feel like like I have some opinions about that situation. Like, so I couldn't even, you know, you just want to sometimes just, you know, sit and kick it and relax and just have fun. And it's like, the more conscious you are, it seems like it's harder sometimes. You know, I don't know. I never want to like give up having fun. But anyway, I've talked too long. I ain't talking about nothing anyway. But, yeah. Yeah. So the schoolgirls, I guess it's like eating an elephant one small bite at a time. Everything in small doses, I guess. Yeah, that's what I try to do. And I try to like, I don't know what I try to do, because I try different stuff every day. But I do know that today is the best day ever, and that you are the greatest. You're the #1 stunner. I told y'all there was somebody on YouTube called the #1 stunner. I found he was doing networking events or something for YouTubers. I guess that's an old expression, but I never hear anybody say it. But today is the best day ever, so let's enjoy it, and let's seek God and seek love and find laughter and light and be of service the best way we can. Keep it moving. Peace. Be you. Be fabulous. Be fabulous you. Be you. Thank you for coming, liking, commenting, subscribing, and all that other good stuff. Be fabulous. Be fabulous.